But I would say that if there is a deal, by the way, it shows that there is leverage, that the United States doesn't have to follow the foreign policy of some other country. The United States can follow its own policy. If there is a deal, this is Donald Trump's accomplishment. Joe Biden, I'm sorry to say, for years has just gone along with what other countries have told the U.S. to do. And this ceasefire should have happened a long time ago. If it comes, and it should come, it is coming through pressure that should have been applied a long time ago. This is a basic point. We've been discussing it not only about the war in the Middle East, but also the war in Ukraine. If you give your foreign policy, that is the United States foreign policy, to some other government to say, well, everything that we decide is going to be determined by the Ukrainians or it's going to be determined by the Israelis, believe me, we will not get what is in the interest of the United States. And by the way, we won't even get what is in the real interest of those other countries. We'll get what is in the interest, perhaps, of a few politicians in those other countries who suddenly have the U.S. at their beck and call. But that doesn't mean that they're serving their own countries properly. And certainly a president of the United States should be saying to other governments, no, you don't determine our foreign policy. So this is what I hope is now starting to happen. It's been a long time,
yes,
where the U.S. has been absurdly manipulated to the U.S. disadvantage, now diplomatic isolation, endless wars, and so on. Maybe something is going to change at this point.
I ask this firmly with tongue in cheek, but have you heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu or from President-elect Trump?
Well, that is very much tongue in cheek. I heard from President Trump only indirectly, being on Truth Social, so that was an interesting way to hear. I did not hear from Prime Minister Netanyahu, although I did hear from one of his ministers who roundly attacked me following an interview that I had with Tucker Carlson. And I responded. I was happy to respond in the Israeli media that the things that I am saying are not even against Israel. The criticisms that I'm making are against a government that is not serving the purpose of its people and is a disservice to world peace. And unfortunately, has been what Netanyahu has been for a very long time.
What you said was to articulate the observation, the truthful observation, that Netanyahu personally has been behind every war the United States has recently fought in the Middle East, as fruitless, useless, and destructive as they have been, and that he is a deep, dark SOB. And that is the part that Trump posted. So he was obviously sending a message to Netanyahu. I may be Israel's best friend, but you're not going to tell me how to run, unlike you do with Joe Biden, how to run American foreign policy. And for that, when did you say this? When was the talk at Cambridge? It was a while ago. It was 2024.
Yeah, it was in 2024. I don't remember exactly the dates. It was a quick visit through the UK, so I had a chance to go to Oxford and to Cambridge and to meet with students there, and they were interested in foreign policy. Why are there so many wars? Why does this danger continue to escalate? And that was the context in which I spoke. But we do know a lot now from participants in the Iraq War. We do know how Netanyahu came and was a great cheerleader of this war. We do know, unfortunately, the role that the Israel lobby played in stoking that war, a war of false pretenses. We do know, unfortunately, again, of a basic political strategy that dates back to a document called Clean Break in 1996, when Netanyahu first became prime minister in Israel, with American political advisors tightly linked with the American political system. And the clean break was the break with the international process of land for peace. In other words, the idea that there would be a Palestinian state alongside Israel as determined by international law, and that peace would come in that context. And what Netanyahu came to power determined to do was to prevent a Palestinian state. This was against international law. This was a claim of territory that Israel would continue to rule over millions of Palestinian people. But his assertion was, we can do this because we will, with you, the United States, I should add, overthrow governments that support the opposition to our policies. And when Hamas or Hezbollah or other groups fight Israel, well, the governments in the region that support them, we will overthrow them. You should go to war with them. That was the idea. What an idea. Instead of saying there should be diplomacy, there should be an agreement based on peace, Israel said, no, we will have it all, and you will go to war so that we have it all. Now, we have an incoming U.S. government that has expressed in the past with President Trump very strong, unreserved support for Israel. And many people around President Trump have said in the past, well, yes, we can ignore the Palestinian question because other governments in the region, especially Saudi Arabia, will make peace with Israel, and they don't care about the Palestinians. They don't care whether there is a Palestinian state. They don't care whether Israel is occupying territory or fighting absolutely brutal, unnecessary wars, killing tens of thousands of people. They don't care. But that's false. What President Trump is going to find, and I think he knows this, but what he's going to find when he comes into office in a few days is that the Saudi government, which is an important ally of the United States, is saying absolutely clearly, we can have peace in the Middle East. We can, of course, have normal relations with Israel. We can end this bloodshed, but it requires a state of Palestine living in peace next to the state of Israel. This is what all of the world has been saying for years, except the government of Israel under Netanyahu and the United States government, which under Biden did every single thing that Netanyahu said. And so we gave up our foreign policy. Israel under Netanyahu pursued a radical foreign policy. War has spread. Netanyahu was betting that when President Trump comes in, not only will the war spread, but the United States will go to war against Iran. That's the last one on Netanyahu's list that the United States hasn't fought so far. But what President Trump will hear from every country in the region, from the Saudis, from all of the countries in the Gulf, from Egypt, from Jordan, from the new government in Lebanon, from Turkey, and from Iran. Yes, from Iran. I know it because I hear it directly in my conversations with the leadership of that country. There can be peace. There can be normal relations with Israel, but only with a state of Palestine alongside Israel so that the region can go to peace. So this is what I'm really hoping, not just for a ceasefire in the next days, which would be wonderful news, but true peace in the Middle East. And I would like nothing more than a tremendous success of President Trump at the start of his administration to help guide, for the first time in decades, a real peace in the Middle East. But it requires that the United States exercise its own foreign policy to say to the Israelis, whether you like it or not, international law, the UN Security Council, the UN General Assembly, the G20, the BRICS, the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the whole world is saying we want peace, no more of these wars on behalf of an untenable Israeli policy. If President Trump will do this, this would change history for the good. This would make the world tremendously safer. This would achieve peace in the Middle East. And it's not